In this video, we're watching Rabbi Shmuley completely lose his composure when he's challenged by both Cenk Uygur and Piers Morgan. Things get heated fast, and let's just say it doesn't exactly reflect well on him. As always, we'll watch the full clip together and break it all down for you at the end.
Yeah, look, you just interviewed a terrorist, and she's one of the most vicious terrorists of my lifetime. These settlers are lunatic religious fundamentalists that believe in murdering Palestinians for God. It's an absurd interpretation of any religious document. The overwhelming majority of Jews, by the way, do not agree with them. They don't think that you have to murder Palestinians for God. And so when you asked her that last question, it was actually very interesting what her answer was. You said, do you mind 20,000 children being killed? And she said, as long as they're teaching their children to hate Jews, she seemed to be justifying that we have to kill their children. So think about the absurd logic of that. Since they teach them to hate us, we murdered their children. Gee, I wonder why they hate you. Like, the fact that she can't even see that shows you how painfully stupid this terrorist is. So I'm done. You guys are way too polite to Israel. Israel is a terrorist state. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in supporting it. I'm not interested in having them steal more Arab land. And I said to you, Piers, a long time ago, that this was never about self-defense. This was about taking Gaza. Well, I was right. I've been proven right by Netanyahu and their terrorist government. I called them terrorists, and I said that they would kill more civilians than Hamas. Are you kidding me? They've now, get a load of this fact. Hamas killed 815 civilians on October 7th. Terrible. We've all condemned it 1,000 times. Now, Israel has killed 870 Palestinians under the age of 1. They have killed more Palestinian babies than Hamas killed civilians on October 7th. And every time it's a justification. No, we talked to God. God told us to steal Arab land. God told us to murder Arab children. What kind of sick state is this? When I saw her smiling, like you said, and smirking, now when I see a lot of these Israeli leaders, I feel like I'm looking at Germans telling us, no, it's okay. We can do this to the Jews. There's going to be no consequences. And their smugness partly, Piers, has to do with the fact that they think we own America. There's nothing you can do. We control the largest military in the history of the world. We can get them to do whatever we want because AIPAC has bought the entire U.S. government. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. I mean, today Trump is talking about, you're not going to get the Epstein files. You're not going to get anything. We're occupied. We're all Palestinians now.
Rabbi Shmuley, I mean, when you listened to that interview with Daniela Weiss, what did you feel about it?
Piers, thank you for having me on. And having had a surprisingly civil debate at Oxford University with my brother Cenk, I'm actually going to excuse his hyperbole of calling Jews Nazis and stick to the facts because you were right, Piers. In your discussion with Daniela,
stop
she should have
smearing Jews.
No, Cenk, please,
Germans.
Cenk, please don't. Okay, you're already interrupting me. Just be civil, please. We had a civil debate at Oxford. Let's try to continue. We shook hands afterward. Hundreds of thousands of people said how much they enjoyed watching us shake hands. Let's be human a little bit. I'm going to do what you said, Piers, and stick to the facts. Number one, Cenk just said that Israel killed so many more civilians that were killed on October 7th. 45,000 Britons died in the Battle of Britain when the Luftwaffe and Hermann Goering, bombed London, Northampton to smithereens. But Churchill killed 700,000 German children. He killed 3 million German civilians. That was terrible. But here's my question to you, Piers. Outside of Parliament is a giant statue of Churchill as the greatest statesman in the history of Britain. Was Churchill a war criminal, yes or no?
No, Churchill wasn't a war criminal. In fact, Matthew, I saw you shaking your head.
Okay. He wasn't. Okay. You said facts. You said facts.
Well, hang on. If you're going to make statements like Churchill,
45. Wait.
Your numbers aren't correct about the number of civilians who died. Never mind anything else.
Yes, they are. There were 3 million German civilians killed by Britain and by the United States. There were 70,000 Japanese killed on a single day in Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. Half of them were children. 35,000. Was Harry Truman a war criminal? Was Roosevelt a war? If you are prepared to say, Piers, based on facts and based on what Cenk just said, that the proportion of civilians to combatant deaths determines whether you're a war criminal. And by the way, Churchill killed 5 civilians for every 1 German combatant. The United States in Fallujah killed 4 civilians and Fallujah in Iraq for every one terrorist Iraqi combatant. So was George W. Bush a war criminal? Was Tony Blair a criminal? If you're prepared to at least be consistent and say that, yes,
well, yeah, I think Bush and Blair were war criminals.
3 million. Was Churchill... Okay, do you think that Winston Churchill was a war criminal? It's a yes or no question.
No.
The same way you put it to Danielle, yes or no?
Churchill, well, let me let...
So Churchill can kill 3 million
All right, you've
Germans,
asked a question.
Okay?
You've asked a question. Matthew.
What we just witnessed is a raw, unapologetic confrontation, one that rips the mask off the hypocrisy we've been fed for decades when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, Israel, and accountability. Cenk Uygur doesn't pull any punches. He says what so many are afraid to say out loud, that what's happening in Gaza isn't about defense anymore. It's about domination, land, power, and yes, bloodshed. And when you lay the numbers out, when you stop sugarcoating it, you realize just how grim the reality has become. 815 civilians were killed by Hamas on October 7th, a horrific tragedy, one that deserves global condemnation, and it got it. But now Israel, in its so-called response, has killed over 870 babies under the age of 1. Babies, not fighters, not militants, infants. And that's just the start. And what's worse is that it's being done with this chilling justification that somehow if Palestinians teach hate, then their children are fair targets. Let's sit with that for a second. That's not defense. That's collective punishment. That's vengeance disguised as policy. And when someone like Daniela Weiss smirks through these questions, as if the death of 20,000 children can be brushed off with a theological shrug, it's no wonder Cenk called it what it is, terrorism. Now cue Rabbi Shmuley. Instead of addressing the moral catastrophe directly, he falls back on deflection. World War II, Churchill, Hiroshima. It's the same tired game we've seen time and time again. Avoid the present by drowning in the past. He tries to compare civilian casualties in Gaza to civilian deaths in global wars 80 years ago, as if scale excuses intent and historical complexity somehow justifies modern atrocities. But here's the thing. No matter how many times you invoke Churchill or Truman, none of it changes what's happening right now. You cannot hide behind old wars to dodge accountability for new ones, and you especially cannot wave away thousands of dead children with a shrug and well, others did it too. What this exchange makes painfully clear is that we're at a turning point in how we talk about Israel, and how we hold our own government accountable for supporting it. The usual talking points aren't working anymore. People are seeing the videos, the bodies, the destruction, and they're asking the hard questions, even if those in power refuse to answer them. The reality is this. Israel's far-right government is operating with impunity, backed by billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars, and a political class too afraid, or too bought, to speak up. And the cost? Tens of thousands of lives. Entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. An entire generation of Palestinians growing up under siege, under bombs, under the weight of global indifference. Cenk calling Israel a terrorist state? That might shock some people. But what should really shock you is that no one in power seems willing to prove him wrong. We've reached the point where facts are no longer up for debate. This isn't about who you cheer for. It's about what you're willing to accept in your name, with your money, under your flag. So ask yourself, if this was happening anywhere else in the world, would we still be silent? Would we still be making excuses? Would we still be funding it? Because silence is complicity, and history has shown us where complicity leads. Let's get back to the video.
I think it's a completely coherent and fair question. It's about means and ends. Is the means justified to achieve a given end? For what it's worth, I think that consequentialist approach is legitimate. I think that Truman was justified in the atomic bombs. I say that reluctantly, but I think there would have been many more deaths had the Second World War not been brought to an end in that way. I know some people will disagree with that position. However,
okay, so you're one of the most fair person. Wait a second. So you're one of the most fair person that I've ever spoken to about on this show. All I'm saying is, let's be clear. Piers, God weeps for every Palestinian child, the 20,000 children. I don't know if it's 20,000, but even if it is, that's weeps for every one. One was too many. But every Arab child is the equal of a Jewish child. But whose responsibility is it? Who builds? I live in a community here in New York, New Jersey. There is no army base near me. Why are the Hamas headquarters in nurseries? Why does Hamas use these children to die so that you will then point the finger? Now, even Hitler did not do that. The German military headquarters were not built in kindergartens. And let me say one final thing, Piers, if I may. Piers, you know what struck me about your interview with Daniela Weiss? You did not once ask her, what do the people of Gaza want? I don't care what Piers Morgan wants. I don't care what Daniela Weiss wants. I don't care what Cenk Uygur wants. I don't care what Rabbi Shmuley
Israel
wants.
to leave.
The people of Gaza don't speak for them in the same way I won't. They have not had a vote since 2005 when Hamas took the leaders of the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, and threw their opponents off the roofs and killed them. Then Hamas abolished all elections. Now, I want the people of Gaza to vote. Do you want to remain in that tiny hovel where you don't have a backyard, where any money that's given to Hamas, if it's rebuilt, will be, again, it'll go to tunnels? Remember that the Hamas got triple the Marshall aid per capita per Palestinian, and they didn't build one bomb shelter, they didn't build one school, they didn't build one university, they just built tunnels and rockets. Ask the people of, so Piers, let me ask you, why did you ask,
may I say to the rabbi, forgive me for persisting here,
decide where they want to live.
But the rabbi did say, I think legitimately, that he had been interrupted and he didn't like it. I was halfway through the point that I was making, if I may say so, when you jumped in. I said that I thought Truman was justified in ending the Pacific War. I think Churchill was justified in trying to end the war in Europe. What I don't understand, and I think a lot of people who are instinctively pro-Israel do not understand, are where are the sunlit uplands on the other side of the evisceration of Gaza? I've been told by senior Israeli officials, confidentially, that young Gazans, Palestinians and people across the Middle East are being radicalised, that these dead Hamas fighters are being replaced at a rate of 5 to 1. This isn't going to affect Israel for the next 5 months or 5 years, but for the next 50 years. And how on earth is flattening Gaza going to help the protection of Israel when their funders are in Tehran?
No, I agree.
The image, and let me just make one final point. In the medium term, I say to the rabbi, and I say this with great sincerity, the image of Israel, I don't want to superficialise it, but the brand of Israel, that liberal democracy in a tough neighbourhood which sits unconsciously behind Western support and has done since the Second World War, has been obliterated, shattered into a million pieces. The next generation of American leaders are going to grow up where the most salient image in their minds is not going to be the Holocaust, as it is for our generation. It's going to be emaciated Gazan children dying in their thousands, being starved via a blockade. I say to you, I understand why Israelis and Jews rallied around Netanyahu after October the 7th. Who wouldn't? After an atrocity of that kind. But I believe you've been goaded into an overreaction that will reverberate through history of great strategic disadvantage to a country I want to do well.
I see you.
All right, and before I let Rabbi Shmuley respond, before you respond, Rabbi Shmuley, I just wanted to pick you up on the statistics that you regaled at the start of that, which I think you said that the British killed 3 million German civilians, including 300,000 children. Is that what you said?
A 5-to-1 combatant to civilian
just to be
ratio.
clear, you said 3 million, and of which 300,000 were children. That's what you said, right?
Right.
It's
the British decimated Cologne, they decimated Berlin, they decimated Hamburg, they decimated Dresden. In Dresden, they killed 30,000 in one night, etc.
Let me finish my point. You were completely wrong. You were wildly exaggerating the number of civilians killed by the British bombing campaigns, the Allied bombing campaigns. It's estimated between 350 and 500,000 German civilians were killed in total by Allied bombing in World War II. And I would also add this. At the end of what...
Okay, so I said 700,000.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. So it was a sixth of what you said, in fact. But the wider point is we brought in the Geneva Convention at the end of World War II specifically to address the issues of mass civilian casualties in World War II. The UK signed up to that. Most countries of the world signed up to Geneva. Israel is a signatory to the Geneva Convention, and yet it breaches regularly the Geneva Convention, including, many believe, what they're now doing as a government in Gaza.
You saw it, unfiltered and undeniable. Rabbi Shmuley completely unraveled the moment he was pressed, really pressed, on what's happening in Gaza. And honestly, this wasn't just another heated debate. This was a revealing moment, a raw window into how defenders of Israel's actions struggle when forced to explain the unexplainable. Now, if you've been watching the channel for the past few weeks, you know we've been covering this unfolding tragedy in Gaza closely. And one pattern keeps repeating. Whenever someone from the Israeli side is confronted with actual facts, actual numbers, and real human suffering, they don't respond with empathy or accountability. They respond with spin, exaggeration, and outright deflection. And this interview, it was textbook. Cenk Uygur laid it all out, calmly at first, then with the kind of emotional force that comes when you're describing something truly horrifying. And let's be honest here, what we're seeing isn't just a conflict. It's not just collateral damage. When over 20,000 children are killed, and yes, that number is now part of the global conversation, this is something far worse. It meets the legal, moral, and human definition of genocide. But instead of grappling with that, Rabbi Shmuley resorted to one of the most dangerous tactics, historical whataboutism. He started bringing up Churchill, World War II, Hiroshima, comparing modern-day Gaza to the Allied bombings of Nazi Germany. It was absurd, it was desperate, and frankly, it was offensive. And that's where Piers Morgan, yes, Piers, who I rarely give credit to, stepped in and did exactly what needed to be done. He fact-checked the nonsense. Shmuley was throwing around inflated, inaccurate numbers, claiming the British killed 3 million German civilians, including 300,000 children. And Piers shut that down quickly, citing actual historical data showing the number was closer to 350,000 to 500,000 total. That moment right there tells you everything. When you're lying to make a moral case for war crimes, your case has already collapsed. And let's not ignore the broader point Piers made near the end, one that hit hard. The image or brand of Israel as a liberal democracy surrounded by hostile neighbors, it's been shattered. For decades, Israel relied on the sympathy and support of the West, especially the US, by framing itself as the lone moral force in a chaotic region. But now, the most powerful image for the next generation isn't going to be the Holocaust. It's going to be emaciated children, bombed hospitals, and mass graves in Gaza. And here's the thing, they did that to themselves. This didn't have to happen. The response to October 7th could have been proportional. It could have targeted Hamas leadership. But instead, it turned into something else, something far more dangerous and morally bankrupt. Entire residential blocks flattened. Food and water cut off. Aid convoys bombed. Civilians used as pawns. And every attempt to raise these issues publicly gets met with the same tired defense. Well, what about Hamas? What about tunnels? What about 1945? Let's be clear. None of those things justify the intentional, repeated, and large-scale killing of civilians, and the way Rabbi Shmuley tried to twist the blame onto the Palestinian people. That's not just wrong, it's disgusting. It's victim-blaming at the geopolitical level. Saying Hamas uses children as human shields doesn't justify killing the children. Saying Gaza is run by extremists doesn't excuse flattening an entire city and turning its people into statistics. This is why these interviews matter. This is why pushback is essential. Because left unchecked, these talking points become normalized. And before you know it, we're rationalizing genocide while pretending it's diplomacy. So, massive credit to Cenk Uygur for staying laser-focused, and to Piers Morgan, yes, even him, for challenging the narrative when it needed to be challenged. It's a wild time when truth feels like rebellion, but here we are. Let me know your thoughts below, because I genuinely want to hear them. Are we finally seeing a shift in public opinion? Are more people starting to question what we've been told for decades? Because if this moment doesn't wake people up, I don't know what will. And as always, while you're down there in the comments, hit the thumbs up for the algorithm. It helps way more than you think. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This is the kind of content we break down here, raw, real, and unfiltered. I appreciate all of you. Stay informed, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one.